Welcome to a second episode of Principles Painting and Talking About Things on a Podcast. Today we're talking about Christian school couples. Something that I have way too much experience in. And I mean, like, a lot of experience in this. So, welcome to the podcast.
The Christian Principles Podcast is brought to you in partnership with the Herzog Foundation. But bear in mind, the views and opinions expressed here are those of the hosts and not necessarily of the Herzog Foundation.
Welcome to the Christian Principles Podcast. I'm Matt George.
Way over here, I'm Mark Zockel. Today, Christian school couples.
Oh, gross.
Oh, beautiful. What a wonderful, wonderful blessing.
I'm just going to have to say right off the bat, this is going to be one of those episodes, if anybody listening knew me in high school,
Forgive us now.
This is going to be really challenging because I was one of those kids that probably faculty had to keep their eyes on far too often. So, So take it from me.
Matt was a smoocher.
I know what we need to be doing when it comes to couples.
This is going to be a little bit biographical.
Oh, dear.
In fact, we might just tell stories the whole time.
Oh, we'll try not to tell too many stories.
All right. We'll do the serious stuff and hear from the Herzog Foundation right now. I know of no Herzog Foundation training when it comes to Christian school couples. So
this is where you're going to get it.
This is rubber meets the road stuff, folks. You don't want to miss this, okay? So, but before us, the Herzog Foundation.
Are you ready to take your school's mission to the next level? This summer, the Herzog Foundation Institute invites Christian school administrators like you to join the transformative workshops designed to equip, inspire, and empower you for the coming school year. Why should you attend? Learn from top Christian education leaders, network with passionate peers from across the nation, gain practical strategies to strengthen your school's impact. Workshop locations vary throughout the year, but this summer and specifically in the month of July, you can find workshops in Dallas, Texas, Nashville, Tennessee, Kansas City, Missouri. Spots are limited and filling fast. Visit herzogfoundation.com/institute to view workshop details and secure your seat today. Remember, it's free. Just get yourself there. Don't miss this opportunity to renew your vision, sharpen your skills, and lead your school with confidence. The future of Christian education starts with you. Sign up for a Herzog Foundation Institute summer workshop now.
All right, just in case we haven't clarified it beforehand, but this is now our second episode where we are actively painting a classroom while recording. So when you hear those weird squeaks, or if you're not watching the video, that's why this is a little odd.
Or if you hear these two dads out of breath while painting, yeah, please dismiss that. Just dismiss that.
I already worked out this morning too. What a.
I mean, it was 9 o'clock when we started. I mowed and I had whacked already, so we had already done a bunch of stuff. But
yep.
Oh man. Okay. Matt and I both attended Christian schools throughout the course of our lives, including our high school lives.
Yeah,
so
high school,
our original Twitter
elementary.
Patients, yeah. Our original Twitter patients came from high school. Came from our Christian school, I should say.
Yep.
Originally, the OG, the girlfriends and all that. I dated 2 girls. You know, that was in a relationship with 2 young ladies in high school. Matt, you?
I don't want to talk about this. Why did we pick this conversation?
This is amazing.
Listen, you could probably call me the Christian school plague. I don't know, but
spelled Playa.
I can maybe count on one hand the number of months within my entire school career that I wasn't at the very least infatuated with a lady.
Oh my goodness.
So I was far more concerned with girls than I ever was with studies throughout my high school career.
Oh, that's amazing.
So yeah, it wasn't like there's a lot of regret looking back, but at the same time, getting into this conversation, I think there was a lot of really important life lessons that I had in that as I am watching these early blooming relationships, frequently flying up around us, that I think has informed our position as a school when it comes to policies with guy-girl relationships that may even be unique. I'm not sure.
Okay, well, let's get into that then. Let's talk about that. Let's say we review the missional, the ethical, the legal. First of all, just what is the policy you have for couples? They're not allowed. There's no such thing as couples. The couples aren't going to be adjudicated in any sort of way. You're just not going to handle yourself inappropriately. What does your handbook say?
Actually, it's kind of interesting because we are updating our handbook this very summer on this very topic. Man, I want to just jump into this is what it says, but at the end of the day, this is another one of those topics where
we don't talk enough, because I did not know that you were going to do that.
Well,
so we definitely don't talk enough.
The school this is another one of those very interesting situations where the school may have a policy, but your parents are going to have potentially drastically different policies.
Conflicting policies.
Yeah, conflicting policies where they maybe encourage dating, whereas you as a school might say there will be no dating on campus.
Yeah, good luck with that, by the way.
Right.
Good luck with that. Don't even try that.
But I'll tell you how our policy read, and then I'll introduce some of the changes that we made to it. So when it comes to our policy on boy-girl relationships, which I also feel if you don't have this down in your handbook, make sure, we say boy-girl relationships because those are the only relationships that we should be dealing with, if you catch my meaning. Okay. So the other ones are just, that's a no-no because we go by the Bible. But no, this is where you got to stick with me through this definition. Faith at the school encourages quality relationships. Mm-hmm. Now, this isn't verbatim. This is word for word. I don't have it right in front of me. But to the gist of it is that we do not want to discourage students creating really good friendships, relationships, and even if we just stop at friendship, it's something I talk to my kids about an awful lot. The kids really don't know what it means to develop a friendship because we are in close quarters with each other. And so you have those, what I have always called forced friendships, just because you're there, you're in my class, you're the person I see, you're the one I talk to. So we jump to the conclusion that you are therefore my friend. But what does it take to actually be a biblical, I'll even say, friend? There's sacrifice involved. There's give and take. There's a lot of these things that when you get to even marriage counseling that you talk about, that's never really discussed in our schools when it comes to relationships. We're just very quick to say what is inappropriate. Does that make sense?
Okay, so we're going to rewrite the policy to be positive, not negative. I know that's a trend in a lot of schools, is to see how much negativity, how many no's and nevers and ne'er shalls they can pull out of their handbook, and replace them with what is it that we want to see. So maybe that's something your school wants to consider as well, is to say, okay, where can I get rid of the thou shalt nots and put in this is what we expect.
And this is what we want to encourage. And this is what, Now, granted, remember I said that's what our policy has read, but we made a little tweak to it. Now, we do say in that policy there is to be no physical contact.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, that's opening a can of worms.
Matt, would you have failed?
Don't ask me that question.
Would you have failed that policy?
Ask me. Yes.
On campus, would you have failed that policy at your school growing up?
Listen. Linda,
honey, listen, Linda.
Where there was a will, there is a way, right? So we won't talk about that. However, I will say,
you got to tell us your stories. I
will say that being a teacher has really opened my eyes to how much my teachers had to have been
Oh
aware
yeah, they had to have been aware of it.
of what was
Absolutely.
going on.
And they're
And
just
I
like,
thought I
I'm
was just
sneaky
the
McSneaky pants.
sneakiest that ever was. No. Yeah. Now, I'm thankful that it was never got to a point where it was
He's serious.
this
Sure,
is
sure,
very
sure,
serious.
sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, like there's no going back from this.
Yeah,
type
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
So very
Absolutely.
thankful for that. But even temptation is always there, and
Sure.
and our kids are always going to be facing that, especially since regardless Christian school or not, this is the time of life where they're exploring. We just spent a lot of time talking about sex education and school, and so obviously when you're going down that road and you're talking about that because these kids are starting to explore, you do need to make sure that you understand that we're setting these boundaries not because we believe as soon as the male epidermis comes into contact with the female epidermis that you're suddenly on your path to the bad place.
Slippery slope. Yep.
Yeah, but
it's a policy. First of all, it's easy. Like let's not overlook that. It's an easy policy that probably 90+% of our schools have.
Now, if no physical contact of a romantic kind,
sort,
no physical contact of a romantic kind, guys, you're walking down the path and some girl trips and falls, and you say, I know the rules, and I'm not touching your hand and helping you up. I don't want to get sent home. Like, no, okay, reach down your hand, help her up, and move on your way. But when it comes to physical contact, and the thing especially that we're adding to our policy is no couple should be alone. I mean, we had that as well, but unless they are supervised. So we're adding that because, again, we don't want to discourage or make it, again, the forbidden fruit, which then makes our students, say, well, I have no other option except for breaking the rules. So we're providing, in a way, opportunity for kids to pursue a relationship and to grow appropriately and safely. And that, I think, is the bigger point of what we're trying to accomplish, is that in a multitude, there is safety. And so we want to make sure our students know we're not against them showing interest in one another. But how many examples can we look back to of couples within the Christian school that change so frequently, and then it leaves, scars. And rebuilding relationships is difficult. It changes dynamics of classrooms.
That's well said.
And so, we want to make sure that we're creating those boundaries that are going to not create that kind of a regretful, wish we wouldn't have, tried these things, because, granted, it's still potentially going to happen.
Yeah.
Because we can't
every good rule
be in control of them 100% of the time. But I think that is a safe, but it's also communicating that we're not against them. That we want to encourage it, especially when it seems. Now, I'll share this story because we had a couple in our school a couple years ago that started showing interest in each other in, like, I want to say 10th grade. So they were a 10th grade couple, and the interest that they showed into each other was just, they talked all the time. But it became something where, talking with other faculty, like, we never had to worry about them. Granted, we wanted to still help them and protect them and guide them, but they just seemed to always want to invest in each other in appropriate ways. And so in a big way, the faculty even encouraged that relationship. And guess what? They are married today.
They're married.
And I love that. I love to be able to look back and say, I don't know 100% of their lives, if they have any regrets that they had in high school, but at least from what we were a part of, It was all very positive.
To be celebrated.
And that is something to celebrate. And I love even talking about it with our students of they were a great example. You want to follow that example. It's something that, I would love to say that I only had one relationship in high school and that was the person I married. That's my sister is the same way. She had interest in this fellow in high school, which my parents are like, too early, not going to worry about that. But they went to college together and got married, now have 6 kids together. Like, it's great to see that. And so I would really hate as an administrator to go back and say, well, my policy never really gave opportunity for those kind of relationships to be developed. I think is the right word. So, yeah.
Okay. So we talked policy. I think we should suffice to say, if you don't have one, that's probably something, and you go through middle to high school, you should probably have a policy on where you stand on those things. As far as stories, I suppose we shouldn't get into stories, but Matt is not married to his high school sweetheart. Mark is.
Yeah, Mark is.
Mark dated 2 girls in high school.
Married them both.
Junior high and high school.
No,
married them both. Not at all, no.
Should not.
But did marry the one who was the longer held sweetheart. As far as precautionary stories I would share, I was told so often, yeah, man, when you go to college, you're gonna see what it really means to find people. So much a bigger pond to fish from, and all this. And dutifully as I was, rule follower as I was, I said okay, and I did. I dated through high school. I even told Andrea things like I signed a Valentine's Day card, things like "For all that I know love to be." Currently,
whoa,
I would do things like that, which I'm sure drove her insane. But I did, for better or for worse, I did. And we broke up when I went away to college. My sophomore year, we got back together, and that was the end of it. We never were apart again. So some measure of a cautionary tale on that front. While the message very well, I don't think it was inappropriate to tell me, hey, be aware, college is a big deal if that's where you're going. I also would have had like someone to sit down with me and have even the further conversation of, but don't discount what you're doing right now.
Yeah.
But don't discount that. And there were certain voices that did discount it. There were certain voices that probably didn't say what they could have on that front. But in any case, we're here now with our 4 kids, not 6 kids.
Yeah.
But we're here with our 4 kids and absolutely blessed for it. I'm going to get this wrong and someone's going to get upset at me. But I think dated from 10th grade on, 9th grade on. I don't remember. It's bad. Hope she doesn't listen to this one.
I think it's already understood. You're not great with dates. Mark is not great with dates or names. But
so bad.
Yeah, that sentiment of you shouldn't put so much stock in what's right in front of you right now because there's a bigger future. At the very least, you ought to be using the relationships in what is right in front of you right now to prepare you for whatever is in the future. Mm-hmm. And if that means you're going to stay with that same person from high school all the way through, sure, that'd be a great thing. And I'm sure the relationship is deeper because of it. Mm-hmm. But we shouldn't just say this isn't real. And
yes, please, yeah.
This is maybe
which
another
I don't think someone said that
day.
to me. I can't recall someone saying like, this is
in a way, that's the way it's taken because it's much like the Christian bubble, right? We talk. Some people will talk about that, like, oh, this isn't the real world. After high school, then you're in the real world. Mm-hmm. Like, while yes, it is a protective hedge, perhaps, we're still in the real world. This Absolutely. Is still life. This is still.
We've said before, but I hate the bubble language.
I don't like it either because this is what God has for you right here, right now. Just as important as it would be if you were not in a Christian school, not in a Christian family. Your life is your life. Period.
And in so much that we are teaching, I like how we did this when we were writing up our accreditation values and whatnot. We made sure to say that for the accreditation piece, which asked us to note how we met or exceeded the expectations that were demanded of us by the state or whatnot. And we said, well, first of all, we teach truth. And so in so much that we teach truth, we believe we are much further along
Right.
teaching the value, biblical values. So in the same way, I think, actually, if you want to call it a bubble, let's call the places a bubble that don't teach truth, that don't teach what is biblically accurate, because they're teaching some other truth, which is not God's truth, which makes it not the truth, which makes it us a stronger place.
Yeah.
And the learning they're getting here, stronger learning.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's something, that's a point to make. I think it would have come down to me trusting an adult to have further conversations with. Okay, well, what should I do? And really who I went to for that advice was older guys.
Right.
Guys that have graduated that I did look up to. And I'll say looked up to spiritually, or I looked up to them in many ways. I thought they were cool, but I also did like how they had gone about their living and wanted to mimic them in their living. There's so many things to talk about when it comes to this, but
now we're not saying that when you have a couple in the class, just go ahead and get started in the marriage counseling. We're not going down those roads at all. But I do think it's important. I think I said this a couple episodes ago that, even when it comes to music, if we aren't taking the time to teach this is why our standard what it is, then, what good is the rule? And in relationships, it's the same way. If we aren't taking the time to explain to them and provide opportunity and say, hey, we want you to develop relationships. And so the policy is created purposefully so that you can learn and grow and develop deeper relationships and not just surface level, like just put up with it because this is the time. But, embrace that. We are educators. We're supposed to be educating. And so even in this, don't just say, well, I don't want to deal with the Twitter patient, the pains of that. Like, deal with it.
Okay, so things we haven't talked about probably deserve a second show. Where are you with formals? Which is to say, where are you with dances? How does your policy affect those things? Where would you be with gifting, Valentine's Day gifting, birthday gifting, in classrooms where people might feel left out if they're not getting something? Make sure you have thought through, and whether or not you put a policy down, just think through this, especially if you're a newer administrator. Do you know the blind spots of your building? If you don't, ask Matt. He probably knows where they were from high school. Apparently.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, when I was at camp, I talked to a guy a lot about his experience at a larger Christian high school, and he noted that they were a part of the church building and that there was a balcony of the church, and that was a time when there was a time and a space where it was before cameras, time and a space that he could just get away to with his amour, and they could make out or whatever it was they were doing in that space.
Let's also just make sure we clarify that there's a lot to be said for the saying, hiding in plain sight.
The purloined letter style.
That is the one. Okay. We need to move on to our spotlight.
We need another episode about this to tell further of our stories, but also to hit those things that we didn't talk about. So we'll go ahead and call this one part number 1. Contact us back with how your school deals with some funny stories about your couples. Tell us how you go about do you celebrate? Do we celebrate Mark and Andrea for being Falcon couples? Or do we celebrate Kaylee and Jordan for being
Kaylee and Jordan? They're brother sister.
Jordan
and Natalie.
Jordan and Natalie for being Falcon couples, and all the rest of them, of course.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. And I think it is worth it. But and maybe we can hear from who we are shouting out, who our spotlight is today. Our administrator spotlight is Mr. Shawn McKinney, administrator at First Baptist School in Rosemont, Minnesota.
Rosemont. That's a classy name, Rosemont.
I will say I've heard that name a lot from my wife who grew up in Minnesota. And we talked to Alan Hodak about those unhealthy rivalries.
Oh,
And I feel like
were they one
the
such?
context of Rosemont was always couched in that. But we know that Shawn is doing a great job
Yes.
there at Rosemont. And so we're going to pray for him throughout this summer. I'll go ahead and pray for Shawn as we wrap up this episode. Father, we thank you so much for Shawn and his work up there at First Baptist. And I just pray, Lord, that you would guide him as he goes through, maybe even this summer, updating policies and looking for opportunities to help grow his students, to grow his faculty. Just pray, Lord, that he would seek your wisdom and guidance in all things, that you would encourage him, that he would be strengthened as he goes through this summertime, preparing for next school year. We thank you for all that you're going to do, both here and in Minnesota for Shawn. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Folks, please tell us your stories. These are some fun things we can talk about as administrative peers and friends, and this would be a great inbox review of part 2 of the Christian school couples. And how many of you, we should give an award out for how many of you
are high school sweethearts?
Yeah, let us know. We should send a really cool gift to you if you are a high school sweetheart. That'd be fun.
Ooh.
All right. Thanks for going with us today.
Before you go, please be sure to hit that follow button on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Also, on Spotify, be sure to tap the star icon near the top and select the number of stars you'd like to give us. We'd be so grateful for 5. On Apple Podcasts, scroll down to the ratings and review section and then tap write a review to share your thoughts of the podcast. Thank you.